In this video on views within Microsoft Dynamics for Sales, we're going to cover off the use of editable grids. Now, this is one in the series that we've done on views. You can see links to others in the series below. Also, if you've got any content suggestions or you need any help with Microsoft Dynamics, please see the links below. So, I've actually enabled one of my views within the opportunities area to be editable. Now, at the moment, I'm showing a read-only grid, but you can see I've got a button here called Show As. If I click on the down arrow, there are some options. We've covered off Focus View in another video, going to be covering off Pipeline View on opportunities in a future video. But the one we're going to look at today is the Editable Grid one. Now, Editable Grid is not something that's out of the box. It's something that your administrator can add to the system. I've just set up this open opportunities view to be editable. So if I go into that from a read-only grid, you'll see it doesn't really change a lot. The same menu items appear across the top. I've still got edit columns, I've still got edit filters, and I've got a filter by keyword function here as well. Now, if I double clicked on one of these records, I'd go into that record as I would if it was a read-only grid. The big difference here is if I click once on a column or row in a column, I can actually edit it. So in this particular case, I've got a probability and I can make that 90% if I wish to. So this overcomes the problem that people have where if you want to make an edit on a read-only grid, you've got to double click on the row, go into the record, make the change, navigate back to the grid. Now, some people find that a bit of a pain, and understandably so. So there are a couple of use cases where this particularly comes into play. So salespeople perhaps operating in a business-to-business context when they're looking to track deals and opportunities. Traditionally, they might have done that in Excel spreadsheets, and they really sort of struggle when they're asked to replicate that functionality within the CRM system. They don't like sort of having to update sort of estimated close dates and probabilities and notes by sort of opening up a record, updating it, going back into the grid. So this very much sort of replicates a sort of Excel spreadsheet type environment. Now, probably another use case you might consider might be if you're trying to do some data cleansing, you've got a big list of contacts and you're going through that and you just want to update that without going into each record. So it's certainly got a place. It can be quite a important capability. However, you do need to be cautious because it's quite easy for people to inadvertently delete data, inadvertently update data, perhaps not knowing that they've done it. It's also quite confusing, I suspect, for new users, particularly if you've got a mix of read-only and editable grids. So it's certainly got a place, but you've got to treat it with a little bit of caution. The other thing I would point out here, I say this will work very much like an Excel spreadsheet, but you've also got this grouping capability here. So I've got this ability to say group by. So this is the other difference in the interface. If I go to the default is no grouping, and then I've got all the columns within my view, and I've got the ability to group on those. Probably the only sensible one I can group on is actually rating. So I'll just show you that. Now, one thing you can do, by the way, is through the not edit filters, the edit columns capability, I could easily add a column to this and use that as the column to group on. It doesn't have to be one that's in the view already. But if I just go to rating, you can see that it then groups it by rating, and I can collapse that if I want to. I could group it on any of the other columns if that was helpful to do so. So it's quite a nice feature that. The other thing, and I'll just remove that, the other difference in the interface really is that, so you can double click on this and go into the underlying record, but you've kind of got an arrow and that just takes you directly into the underlying record. So if I want to go onto that one, if I just click on the arrow, I go into that record. If I go back, I go back to the view. So that's an introduction to editable grids. As I say, they've definitely got a place and they can be quite useful at times, but I think they need to be used a little bit judiciously. Just be careful with them. Anyway, that's another in our series on views within Microsoft Dynamics. You can see links to others in the series below. Also, if you have any suggested content ideas or you need any help with Microsoft Dynamics, please see the links below. Thank you very much for your time today, and hopefully see you again soon.